Well, hello and welcome to the Positive Money Club interview series. And my name is Cindy Morgan-Jaffe, as you know, and I am excited to have Jamie Lapin here with us today to on this important topic of financial security. And we have some questions that we're going to be exploring and also letting the interview also go where it needs to go on this important topic. And so I guess the first and most important thing is if you would not mind just introducing yourself and a little bit about your who you are and what your business is.
Sure. Thank you for having me, Cindy. I really appreciate it. I'm Jamie Lapin, and I am a certified financial planner. In fact, I was one of the first certified financial planners. And I am also a certified divorce financial analyst. And I was one of the first in that area as well. Groundbreaking is fun. Uh, but you also get to experience, I have gotten to experience um, where women, most particularly, since most of my clientele is women, um, are fearful about money. And we get no money education. That is not something that is part of our educational system. Some private schools do some, but public schools do absolutely none. Um, and so women are raised to be fearful about handling their own capital. Um, as a species, we don't really understand how a pile of money turns into a stream of income. And so, by not asking questions, we don't get answers. And then we are left with our fear. And I want to break that cycle of fear and liberate people so that they can feel comfortable, feel safe, and learn to enjoy their wealth.
Yeah, boy, are you speaking our language. I mean, fear and positive money is all about the choosing to come from a place of love rather than fear. Can you say a little bit about, um, and you're giving some big reasons for this, could you uh, give a little more detail, just an example of where you see this with your clients, where the lack of asking questions, for example? Could you share an example of the impact of that?
Well, women are much better question askers than men are. We all know that, women will ask directions and therefore we often get where we're going. But in an area like this, we're afraid to ask questions because we have been trained to believe that we're stupid when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to money issues, and we buy that. Um, and so in a lot of this work, I find that men handle the money in a family situation. The woman knows what size shoes the kids wear and who the pediatrician is, and all of these basic maintaining lifestyle questions. And the men are left to the money with the idea that, they can at least handle that. But the men don't have any more training than we do. And I think that often they are just as intimidated by the process, but they don't have permission to admit it. And
Mm-hmm.
so um, there's a lot of shame that goes with money. There's fear on one side and shame on the other. And so the inability to be Warren Buffett leaves a lot of those who are left to that task feeling feeling inferior to this task and feeling embarrassed about owning up to the fact that they really need to know more in order to be able to do better.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're left with someone in charge of a process who doesn't understand the process and isn't feeling strong in the process, and someone else trusting them to their entire future and leaving them to a responsibility that they are not up to.
Yeah.
That's often not our wisest decision.
No. um, Yeah, I mean, the way one of the things you started out with was saying this pile of money and then moving it into a stream. And I mean, I just get a picture of someone like myself frozen, like even embarrassed to meet with a financial planner because of that shame.
That's frequently the case,
Yeah.
though more frequently with men.
Oh, really?
Women have enough courage, for the most part, to admit that there are things that we don't know. We don't have an expectation of ourselves of
Mm.
knowing everything.
Mm-hmm.
And not having that expectation gives us the freedom to ask questions.
Mm. I
But when
love
we
that.
ask the questions, we actually go in with certain expectations. And if the answers to those questions don't match our expectations, we'll fight it. And we'll fight the economic freedom that we actually have because that is not how we perceive ourselves.
Hmm.
So, not being locked into a dangerous self perception is enormous in our moving forward toward comfort with money, comfort with our situation, and understanding of where we sit and what our safety looks like.
Mm. Wow, that's powerful. So what you're saying is that there's huge strength and opportunity by being in a place of um, curiosity, of acceptance that this isn't an area that I know a lot about. So, as a starting point, being okay with that, being that women in general are okay with that. We're more open to saying, okay, what's next? Like, how do I get deal with this? I've already dealt with that, and now how do I deal with this?
Well, we're more okay with that, which is not the
Mm-hmm.
same as okay.
Okay.
So we have a willingness to understand that we don't know everything, but
Mm-hmm.
we're intimidated by the learning process.
Yeah.
And so we tend to shy away from the learning that we need to do in order to go where we need to go.
Okay.
So I can't get around the corner without Waze in my car. There are things that I do not know that I'm just not programmed to know. And there's other things that I can know that I just have to learn more. And when it comes to money issues, it's a lot like learning another language. Even if you don't feel that you're really programmed to learn another language,
Mm-hmm.
you can if you take it slow, if you take it in small increments, if you have a situation where you have basically a Duolingo
Right.
to help you learn the money issues in group settings, in articles, in private classes, however it happens, the more exposure you get, the more you will learn.
Mm-hmm.
And if you understand your own personal situation, then you can learn toward the goals that are open to you.
Yeah. So let's take that and move it into this topic of security and financial security. So, what I'm hearing as a starting point is for those who are worried about their financial security, that's obviously a huge topic. So, bringing it into the space of choosing to, I want to be more thoughtful, more careful, more, on top of this, what are some of the three, if you could talk about maybe three different steps or ways that women really start to tackle this question? Like, do they come to you with that
Yeah,
big
that's a
question?
great question.
Okay.
That's a great question. Um, we have different times in our life where the money is different. Most women who are 50 and over are feeling awful that they haven't saved sufficiently toward their retirement. And they kind of forget that the time before 50 is a very expensive time.
Mm.
In real time, you have households to create and to move forward with. If you have children, they have a ton of expenses going through the 12th grade experience, moving on to the college experience. It is a time of phenomenal expenses, followed by a time of less expense. And so there are catch up opportunities available. And the fact that you have not saved sufficiently, first, what does sufficiently mean? You have no one to compare yourself to but yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so most of us judge ourselves harshly and assume that whatever we're doing is insufficient. But there's catch up opportunities available. So by figuring out what you need, you can figure out if you can actually build a path to get there. Maybe you can't. It is possible that what some of what you think you need is actually what you want, and that you may have to fine tune to understand a want from a need and
Mm-hmm.
determine what's actually possible for you.
Right.
If it's not possible, it's good to know, isn't it? Is there anything I can do to change this? And if there's not, how do I move to acceptance? And how do I move forward to a place where I can be as safe as I can be? Right? Maybe I'm not buying a castle in Spain, but I can still live a safe and secure life. Uh, we have to understand that we live longer than our male counterparts.
Mm.
Excuse me. And generally, if we marry someone who's a couple years older, 2 to 5 years, and then they die at a younger age. So we have a period of time when we are on our own, and it's preceded by a period of time when we may be in a caretaker mode. There may be cash leaving based on our health needs, based on our partner's health needs, and that becomes a little more expensive again. So you have to be planning for the immediate future, the slightly more distant future, retirement time. And as you get closer to the end of life, that can be a very expensive time. So, what do you have? What can you use as a prognosis for where you're going?
Mm.
And a lot of this cannot be known, but much of it can, or reasonable guesstimates can be made through financial planning. So, by working with a planner, we can figure out what your future looks like given where you're at, what you anticipate being able to save, and how it compares with what your goals are. Can you have more of a life than you actually thought you could have? Can you have a richer life than you thought you can have? Are you spending in a way that is not leading you to financial success in the future? Can you tweak your current lifestyle to give you the lifestyle you want down the road? There's a lot of options available, but knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And until you start garnering that knowledge, there's only so far you're going to get.
Yeah, and I think uh, one of the questions that I know comes up a lot is, how do I know? Like, I have the it's a catch 22 thing. It's like, well, okay, how do I set these goals out? And I know it's actually been my experience. Often I'll be asked, okay, well, what are your goals? And then I'm like, well, I'm not really sure what my goals are because I'm kind of don't know. I don't want to be silly and planning for something that I can't do. And so it feels like you're frozen almost in time of how do you navigate. And also I'm hearing the different levels, right, the different layers you're talking about, looking backwards and aware of what you've spent, and then you're in a moment where you're pivoting. So I hear a pivot here, and I think
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I think would be helpful is for you to share how you've seen um, the clients pivot in ways that really were meaningful, like where you've seen transformation. You've seen like what's that magic formula, right? Because is there a magic formula, or is it just being in that practice of taking care of your money?
There's not a magic formula, but there is a fairly magical path. And that's almost as good as a magic
Yeah, I
formula.
love that. I want to go on
Um,
that magical path.
Magic's good. Magic is good. If you can invoke that, your life is definitely improved. Um, I think that you said something that was interesting to me, that you didn't want to go toward goals that are silly. And the
Mm,
fact is, even if they seem silly to you, they're impacting your thinking about money.
mm,
And so if you don't verbalize them, if you don't work out that they are impossible, perhaps they are. If you can't redline it, then it's still there and it's still
mm,
impacting your thinking and your decision making or lack thereof. I can never have that castle in Spain. It's not even worth it for me to be more reasonable with my money because my goals are out of reach. I mean, you have to have an opportunity to contextualize this.
yes, yeah.
And so by owning what your goals are, what we find very often is that people go through the planning process. And when we're presenting them with the plan, they start to cry
Oh, yeah.
because they didn't feel they had the right to
Mm,
the things that really were their dreams. And
mm,
so they redlined them themselves when in fact they were very realistic goals. We don't know what's available and what's not available. So we decide what's available and what's not available.
mm.
And then we're left with the product of our imagination as the mode by which we decide our futures. That is not the magic formula. That does
I
not
love that.
work as well.
Yeah. Well
So,
said. Well said. That imagination is wonderful, but it's not necessarily the formula that's
yeah,
going
hope is
to.
not a strategy.
Yes, hope.
Imagination is not a magic formula. And so you have to have some facts that you can base this on.
Okay.
And once you have information, information is power. It has always been.
Mm-hmm.
And information is freedom. And that is most important for women because we are not trained to think of ourselves in this way. We are not trained to think of ourselves as the purveyor of this power. We are the inside people in our household, right? We
Right.
make sure that everything stays afloat as it should. And we don't think about the power we have.
We'll give you whatever time you need. Um, yeah, I think that is really an important message to embrace, not just to understand that art. For example, the second principle of positive money is that it's generational. So understanding what we've inherited. So all of that that's coming, women couldn't have a credit card. Women, there's a lot culturally. There's a lot coming through us. So recognizing that we are formed by generations back and we're also modeling generations forward. And so I think that I call it leading your money. And being in
Absolutely.
that place of leadership, I think, is really what I'm trying to cultivate with the clients that I work with is how are you stepping up as a leader as you have in other parts of your life. This is just another part. Um,
I think that's very important. And women tend to be a little codependent. Use your codependence. You have a responsibility
yeah,
to
that's a good
other
one.
people, to your children, to other people in your life, to help them find their power.
Mm,
And so if you have a hard time doing it for you, find somebody else who needs this and help them on their path by modeling.
mm, yeah, that's that's great advice. So, just I guess one last thing because I just want to we're coming closer to our end of our half an hour together. Um, one of the things I keep getting asked about is when I talk about organizing one's financial affairs as an ultimate act of leadership, right? I mean,
Yep.
um, one of the things that comes up a lot is what is financial affairs? Is that only a will and a trusts and powers of attorney and things like that, or is it a broader scope or inclusive of other things. And so I'd be curious, when how much do you work with people on that kind of organizing your financial affairs, and how important um, is that, and what advice could you give
It's
women?
imperative. It's
Okay.
not just important, it's imperative.
Okay.
And generations past, one of the big generational differences, we are all living in the shadow of the Depression and the ways that our parents invested and or didn't invest, and the ways that our parents didn't share information about money, and the way women are left behind, next gen is left behind because there's no sharing of this information. And at very difficult times is when the sleuthing begins to try to figure out what's going on economically. And that is unfair to everyone.
Yeah.
So when somebody has a stroke and all their financial information is in their head, not helpful. And
Yeah.
if one of your big goals, as so many of us have this goal, not to have to be dependent on our children, not to have to be a burden to our children, there's nothing more burdensome than not sharing where the answers can be found. Perhaps you have your own reasons to not want to share the answers per se, but not to share the treasure map, that's unfair.
Yeah.
And
What
that
a great
creates
way.
it creates a horrible situation. And so for them to try to undo that, you have online information about you that you probably don't want to stay there after you're gone. This is how is anybody going to untangle that for you if you haven't shared how to do so? You have accounts that they may know about or may not know about. And besides estate planning, it's very unfortunate when you're dead, but basically you're less expensive then, and you have fewer needs. Um, but when you are pre-dead, when you need someone who is going to be your official plug puller or determine what nursing home you're going to be in if you need a period of time to recover or a longer stay, if you need someone to pay the bills so that the lights can stay on in the house that you're not currently in, or you are currently in, but you can't remember how to do these things. You need to have a team that can
Mm.
support you so that your last years can be good years and not fearful years. And that's on you, but it's doable. There's a team. There's always a team that's around and available to support you in creating these opportunities for people to find advice and
Yeah.
find your wisdom.
Yeah. Beautifully said. Really, I especially love your focus on team and this idea that we even have an internal team, um, and knowing who's showing up on that internal team is critical. And then
Mhm.
the larger part of it, which you're saying, is the sense that this is a lot of work. Like there's a lot of responsibility here, and so by not tending to it, the message isn't that this is about fear. It's about responsibility and leadership, and
Yes,
actually taking care and giving yourself relief, greater sense of relief, sleeping better at night, knowing that all of this is in place as best as you possibly can do that.
that's how you
So
create a safe environment for yourself. And you're stronger when you feel safe. When you
mhm.
feel threatened, it's hard to make good decisions. When you feel strong, you can make good and healthy decisions for yourself and for others. So, the key, in my estimation, is to help you to get to a point where you feel stronger and more secure and more able to make decisions without judging and second guessing yourself and allowing you that freedom.
Yeah, yeah, beautifully said. And I would just say, as a closing, um, what is the role of a financial planner for someone? I know there's estate attorneys, But could you just very briefly just say at what point would I engage a financial planner if I am already working, say, for people have said, oh, I have a wealth advisor already. The team is taking care of everything. So I'm curious where
That's a
you
great
slot
question.
in.
And the answer is a wealth advisor handles investments, but it is not contextualized,
Okay.
right? The estate attorney handles the issues that pertain to philanthropy or next gen with your money, but they are not working on these lifestyle investments. Financial advisors have specialty CFPs, certified financial planners, have extensive training and specialization in all of these different financial areas. So they are not estate attorneys, but they understand how estates work, how to help you to partner with your estate attorney to get what you need out of that relationship. We are not accountants. We don't do taxes. We have a deep understanding of taxes. We save people hundreds of thousands and more sometimes in lifetime taxes by rearranging their assets in a way that makes more sense. That's beyond just the growth of portfolio, which is
Mm-hmm.
also important. But if you are wealthy, your federal, state, and local tax rate could be 40% or more. That means a lot. Sometimes it means a lot more than the growth of the portfolio is not losing it all to taxes. Um, Financing your kids going to school, all of these different, anything that has a dollar sign is relevant to our area of specialization. We can help you with how am I going to handle a mortgage? We're not going to get you a mortgage. We don't provide mortgages, but we know enough about mortgages to help you down that road. So anything that has a dollar sign is relevant to the work that we do with you. So planning is a lifetime process.
Mm-hmm.
It is not a one off. We have lifetime relationships with our clients. Often, generally, we have generational
Mm.
relationships
I love that.
with our clients. So we are able to help them to create financial security and wealth for the generations to come by working as a team. And instead of working in a box, we are working holistically to look at everything that's going on now, everything that you are anticipating and hoping for down the road, and how to merge these things to get the best possible result.
Yeah. Well, that's very well said, and what I really hear in that is that your interest is in our interest. That
Absolutely.
you're not necessarily looking at the okay, I'm going to guide this over here because I can make more money. You're really there because you're supporting this practice, this fundamental practice of financial security.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And we're not building toward a one-off relationship. This is a lifetime relationship based on trust.
hmm, that's great. Well, what a perfect way to end the interview is about trust and safety and the peace of mind. These are all things that I'm really coming away from, and I just appreciate your clear uh, depth of experience in this. What did you say? What number of financial planner when you were you? I think you
I'm number
told me
82. I think there's
82.
300 some thousand now, but
That's
yeah, I was a
that's
pretty early
significant.
adopter.
That's great. I love that so much, and I really, really appreciate you being with us today. Your messaging is clear and comes from obvious experience with so many, and just really appreciate this. And I think let's hope the news and the message just gets continuously spread
Thank
because
you.
that's what we're here for.
And I appreciate what you're doing with the club because you're creating a safe space for women to develop a sense of curiosity and safety
Mm.
that will lead them to much better lives. I think it's really important work. So
Oh,
thank
good.
you.
Yeah, well, thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording.